Hey, 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 thanks for being in the REC experience. I'm your host, Jas Takhar, with your girl, Laura Stewart. What's going on, girl?
Hey, Jazzy, how's it going?
Good. Just finishing up the last condo launch project that we did in Port Credit. Big shout out and congratulations to the over 25 investors, 26 to be exact.
I was going to say, I think it's 26. I just got off my final phone call.
Well, congratulations to you, Laura. Congratulations to the clients. Congratulations to the team and the developers. They did a phenomenal job with this project, picking this location. But more importantly, for our investors, they helped us launch. Like the builder did. The way that they allocated these units was the way that we like to see it, in tranches, doing them at about like 40 to 50 at a time, gets our investors in very, very early. I think you saw the new price list. You were saying somewhere like 19, 21, 22,000.
Yeah, I think average was 20 grand. I got to tell you, it's always a really, really nice feeling when I'm finalizing the steps with our investor clients. And I get to say, look, at the end of the day, like you're only going firm now because you get that automatic 10-day due diligence period. But in that time, the developer already increased pricing. So before they even firmed up, they've already made 20 grand on paper. So it's such a good feeling. And obviously it leaves a great taste in their mouths as well.
Well, I'm sure that's your favorite part of the job, making that call and telling people how much money they made, right? Like in such a short period of time as well. And then we'll also see, right? We'll see more and more increases by the developer because there's still units left. But we here at REC, we don't want to now really work the project with our investors. Why? Because the money's already been made. So it's very, very important when you do a pre-construction condo investment to purchase very early. Laura and I did the masterclass, the boot camp when it comes to pre-construction condo investing a couple of episodes ago. So make sure you scroll down. Today's episode, I forget, we're now moved to numbers. So I think we're like 115, 116. I'm probably wrong. I don't know if you know off the top of your head.
Put the number up on the screen and let everyone know what number we're at. I don't even know anymore. I think I'm supposed to be the executive producer of the show. I'm not doing a very good job, but I was busy in a condo launch. So
you're excused. You're excused. Before we get on to this new episode, a couple of housekeeping notes. First and foremost, need your guys' help, especially if you're watching this on YouTube. Need you to press that like button, and or if you haven't subscribed, which would be odd to me, but if you're new to our podcast, please, and new to our YouTube page, press that subscribe button. And if you have been watching for a while, and I know there's a lot of people watching, but you haven't pressed the like button, the reason that's important, guys, is because the way that the algorithm works in YouTube, it really helps with the views. And so we normally, myself and Laura and the rest of the team, don't normally ask a lot, but we do need your help here. Do need you to press that like button, and
help
obviously
us beat the algorithm. Help us beat it.
Why not? Let's get our content in front of more and more people.
Exactly.
But we got something very exciting today to announce. If you're not following us on social, or you haven't been on a call with us recently, then you don't know. But we are in the next week and a half, to be exact, it's Saturday, August 15th. Saturday, August 15th. We are doing the world's first ever 12-hour real estate marathon. It's going to be a webinar. It's free. There's no cost. Laura, why don't you talk a little bit about how this came about and what we're going to be talking about for 12 hours, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah, well, essentially when lockdown started, our team very early on decided that we needed to continue to provide content and education to our clients. And so we started doing weekly weekly brunches, like they were webinars where we were just, we had industry experts, people coming on to educate and teach people in lots of different topics about real estate. And we thought, well, let's put that on steroids now, and let's do a full day, 12 hours straight of real estate education, tips, tricks, strategies from industry experts. And so essentially sorry?
exclusive opportunities as well.
Oh yeah, so I shouldn't forget that. We're going to be launching a new project, so that's super exciting. And really, I mean, obviously, we would love for everyone to come on and be there for all 12 hours. We're going to be hunkered down for the whole time, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But ultimately, you're going to get a schedule beforehand, and then you can kind of pick and choose which courses you'd like to join in on. Most of the segments will be about 20 minutes long, and so we're keeping things nice and short. We're really just trying to give people, the Coles notes, so to speak, on different real estate topics.
And we're going to have close to, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but close to 20 speakers. You're going to be, you're there all day. You're going to be coming in and out of the webinar, as well as doing a talk for 20 minutes about the 10-day due diligence period, which is very, very important. You're obviously leading what's going on in the back end with this thing. It's 9 a.m., 9 p.m., Saturday, August 15th. Go to therealestatemarathon.com. That's www.therealestatemarathon.com. Very easy to sign up. There's no cost. And as we always say, tell a friend. But today's episode was a featured on podcast episode with Matt McKeever, who, small world, real estate in the Greater Toronto / Southern Ontario, really in the country, in Canada, it's a very small world. We run in the same circles, myself and Matt McKeever. He's a real estate content creator like we are, as well as a real estate coach. He had me on his show. So everybody who's watching and listening right now is going to be able to take in me being kind of the featured guest on his.
So if you're not sick of Jas's voice yet, be sure to keep listening.
Well, it's about 55 minutes on Sales 101, all things really sales and service. It's what I've known for 25 years. It's really the only thing that I know that I do really, really well. Maybe as a podcast host, the verdict's still out on that, I guess. But selling has been kind of my forte. And Matt, I got to say, I've been on a lot of podcasts, but this guy, he really digs deep. And so he had me answering questions, kind of high level, low level, and everything in between. I'm very excited for people to listen to this episode. It's not about real estate sales. It's about sales in any industry. And so I think there's going to be a lot of value from that people can.
I got to sort of be a fly on the wall while this was happening. I was in the office, sort of listening in. And I got to say, you drop a lot of good content, a lot of good advice. Like you said, it's not just for realtors or people in real estate. It's any salespeople. And really, at the end of the day, aren't we all kind of selling something at some point anyway? So be sure to listen in, take some notes even. Like, get that notepad out and take some notes. This is the prior content we got.
The student in you is always coming out, Laura.
The nerd in me, you mean?
Well, look, you said it. I didn't want to say it. As always, guys, leave us a comment, leave us a review, and again, press that like button if you're watching on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, we're on all podcast platforms. Just search REC Experience, and make sure you go to therealestatemarathon.com and sign up for our 12-hour real estate investment marathon / webinar. It's packed with speakers. This is something that we're very, very excited about. And as always, like I said, give us your feedback. Let us know what other topics you want us to cover. Laura, thank you for everything you do.
You bet, Jazzy.
And to you, the viewers and listeners, thank you so much.
Enjoy the show, guys.
REC Experience presents Real Estate, Entrepreneurship, Leadership with your host, Jas Takhar. The REC Experience podcast is now on air.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, I sit down with Jas Takhar. Now, I've seen him before on Instagram, but somehow we haven't really crossed paths up until recently doing a Instagram live together with his Nightcaps with Jas. He's a real estate investor, he's a realtor, and he actually leads LePage's #1 realtor team across Canada. So he definitely knows what he's talking about when it comes to real estate, as well as growing a scalable business and really being able to build a team. game. In today's video, I sit down with him and we just kind of have a stream of consciousness, but we discuss all sorts of interesting topics, or at least topics I hope you guys are going to enjoy. We discuss really approaching sales and the importance of understanding sales and getting good at sales. And in fact, if I really had to give a person one piece of advice and they're looking to really go out there and crush it as a young individual, it would be get good at selling. That's a skill set that you can port over to almost any other aspect of your life at any point down the road. In addition, we discuss how he was able to build such a successful business and brand around being a realtor. Spoiler alert, a lot of it includes just caring about your customers. If you can really care more than the other guy, if you can build a deep connection, this can really go a long way in business. Doesn't matter what your business is, but especially for realtors out there. So anyways, enough of the preamble. Let's dive into today's video with Jas.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here with Jas from Rec Canada, and really excited to have him here today. And so if you guys aren't familiar with Jas, originally the way I guess I stumbled across you was just on Instagram. Seemed like you were bumping into a lot of the same people I know in the real estate influencer sphere here in Canada. It's kind of a small network, so it doesn't take long to bump into each other, but somehow we just never have actually crossed paths personally. But I love what I've seen so far from you on social media and just your message in general. Definitely gives me a lot of similar feelings to Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, other thought leaders in this space. So one, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. And two, I'd love to just hear, exactly who are you, exactly who is Rec Canada, and how did you get it here?
First and foremost, Matt, thank you so much for having me, my man. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience. And I also want to congratulate you. I mean, you're somebody who's been producing a lot of content, not only for Canadian viewers and listeners, but right across the world. And I know how hard it is to produce the amount of content that we both do. And so just a big kudos to you, to your team, and a huge congrats on all the success. And thank you. Thank you for putting yourself out there. That's very hard to do. I also had a tough time with it at start, and now I love the cameras. I want 6, 7 of them around me at any given times. And so just wanted to thank you for putting yourself out there, because there's a lot of people who are learning. They're learning not only from your successes, but you're putting out some failures as well, man. And that's always a good way to learn. So thanks for all that. And again, look, I am very thankful to be here with you today to talk to your audience. Started in real estate about 15 years ago. Started out with a team of right now we have a team of 33 realtors, 10 support staff, and we help a little over 700 buyers, sellers, and investors every single year. And so the nice thing about that is that we got a lot of data. Again, we get to see where a lot of home buyers and sellers and investors make mistakes, and obviously where they make a lot of successes and make a lot of money. And so I can now speak to that to a lot of people at mass. And about 3 years ago, though, I heard a word called podcast, and I was like, what the heck is a podcast? And as I Googled it, I found out that you could talk into a mic and you could do it for free. You could distribute it for free. And that's when I got into the content world. And now I'm proud to say with my media squad, there's about 6 of us, full-time videographer, full-time copywriter, part-time videographer, graphic designer, and now a cartoonist, because I'm going to start doing a lot of content in cartoon and animation format. We produce about 20 pieces of content daily on all the platforms, and just really having a fun time, right? It's how like you mentioned earlier, it's how you and I met. I'm just meeting some really cool people right across the world. You mentioned the Gary V's and the Grant Cardones. I was lucky enough to interview both of them, spend some time with Gary and his team, and just started to kind of take a lot of what he's doing. It's a little idea of my studio here. I brought in a local graffiti artist to tag up my wall here. And it was a way just to connect. It was a way to connect with not only my current clients and my list of clients, but start to reach out to the world and just having a blast with it.
Love it. So social media and really becoming, omnipresent on social media happened after the success of real estate, right? You kind of built up your team and built up your business really before social media, and then have just leaned into it as another avenue to generate more awareness and I assume eventually sales. Do you mind?
Yeah. I was gonna say, just like for me, it all started really just building up my client base, right? I didn't even really know much about social media other than like posting some personal pictures on Facebook, and then Instagram came out. Not really producing any content, not from a educational or really like entertainment perspective. It was a place for me to go see other people's pictures, and a place for me to do some learning, but not really putting myself out there.
Mm-hmm. And so just to put it into perspective, I was poking around on your website a little bit. And if I understand correctly, you're either the top team or one of the top teams for your brokerage, right? Across Canada.
All Royal LePage Canada, and I appreciate that, man. Right across Royal LePage, the brand, which is about 22,000 realtors coast to coast. My team is number one, and myself and my business partner, we manage that team. We focus primarily on the Greater Toronto area. I'm born and raised kind of on the north part of Toronto in a little area called Rexdale. That's where like northern Etobicoke. That's where I'm born and raised. And my team spans right from Durham to Burlington, Newmarket down to the lake. That's kind of our niche that we focus on.
Love it. And so I'm assuming there's a lot of stories there, and I'd really love just to explore at least a few of them. So first of all, what drew you to real estate, and did you start off in real estate sales right away, working as a realtor?
Yeah, so when I started in real estate, it was 15 years ago. I started off as a real estate agent, but it all kind of really started for me when I was about 12, 13 years old. I was that kid with the paper route. Learned really quickly that I can start getting more routes and starting to like broker them to my friends who were kind of shy to go out and actually get a paper route, even to make a phone call, but they were okay taking the route for me. I took a little cut from them, and I knew right away, man, I was hooked to what money afforded me, which was freedom. It allowed me to buy what I wanted. My parents, I'm a son of immigrants. My dad was a taxi driver. My mom was a factory worker, and they said to me, "Look, if you're making this money, you do what you want with it. It's yours. We advise that you save it." And put it away. And I obviously, the first few paychecks I ever got, spent it on like cards and candy and bullshit. And once I started to realize that I could put away some money and buy bigger things, maybe I wanted to buy a nicer pair of Jordans or a nicer pair of pants. And I started to budget at a very young age, 14, 15. I was writing all my dad's checks, balancing his checkbook, hating when he asked me to do it. But I'm glad that I did, because even now that's one thing that I'm really, really good at. In fact, I say I probably suck at 97% of things, like all these shelves behind me, man. You don't want Jas holding a hammer. That's not what I do. I'm good in sales. I like to make it easy for people to buy, and I can budget. I'm really good at that as well. And as I just was growing up, I went into other sales and service jobs. I worked at the bank for a while, for about 3 years at CIBC, kind of in my late teens. Just squeaked by high school, never went into like post-secondary. And then I got into car sales for 3 years, got a mentor there, kind of taught me how to sell, and sell luxury, like it was in luxury car sales, Acura's, Lexuses. And then I, as I mentioned earlier, 15 years ago, got my real estate license. I actually got into it because I thought I was going to learn how to invest. But once I got that book in the mail, I was like, oh, this is to become a real estate agent. I was like, okay, you know what? I can sell. I'm gonna kind of see where this takes me. Thinking while I'm gonna do the course, they'll teach me how to invest. But it teaches you nothing about how to invest. It teaches you only so you don't get sued or when you help a client, which is very important. I wanted to learn how do you buy a property and rent it out, and what do you do? And so I just started learning that kind of on the side, like just reading books, going to workshops, going to seminars. All my education is from everything that I did outside of school, not within school. Not that I'm here saying that you shouldn't get diplomas and degrees, and I think they're very important, and we need people who have them. But I want to make sure anybody watching or listening right now also understands that if you don't have a diploma or degree, don't let that keep you down, because there's content like Matt's, there's content like mine. There's so much other ways of you consuming information that there's no excuse anymore.
Yeah, love it, and 100% agree with that entire sentiment. So what did the first couple of years of being a realtor look like for you? You know, did you take to it like a fish to water right away because you had some sales experience already?
Yeah, it was right away. I again got another mentor who had a small company at that time. Actually, it was the Real Estate Center. That's where REC comes from. REC. We just made it cool a few years ago and abbreviated it. And he got the acronym now, so it's REC, which stands for Real Estate Center. He was my mentor, taught me like right out of the gates, and I was kind of the errand boy for 2 years. He said to me, "Look, I'm gonna teach you everything there is to know about selling real estate and helping people invest, helping people buy and sell their homes." And he was at that time approximately like 20, 21 years into the business, very successful guy, but didn't have it really much help other than an administrator. And so I learned right on, like I was essentially doing it for free. He would throw me some money here and there to keep the bills. Luckily, I was still living with my parents, so I didn't have major expenses. But it was probably the best thing that happened to me because I was learning from the best. And I was getting to spend a lot of time with him. And so over the first 2 years, it was really me being a sponge, just kind of learning terms. Like I didn't know what the heck, I didn't know what a contract, like in school they teach you, but when you actually have to work a deal, I was scared shitless. Like I'm doing $500,000, $400,000 worth of real estate at that time. And people are a lot older than me. I'm 20, I would have been 23 at that time. It's probably one of the biggest transactions in someone's life. And so I was obviously nervous, you know, like just even thinking about right now, my hands are getting sweaty, right? Because I was that kid, like just trying to pick up on the ins and outs. And then after that, I would say year 3 is when I was like, I could do this. I know how to make it really easy for people to buy, meaning like, I'm not really selling much. You know, it's like, here, let me give you the information. I'll package it for you. And then you, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer or seller or investor, can now make an informed decision. You know, I get back to people really quickly. I think there's some basic stuff that as a salesperson, you need to pick up on, like basic phone skills, like answering the phone might be a great place to start. Getting back to people, not over promising and under delivering. And so I generally, you know, under promise and just make sure that I over deliver. And then that third year is when I started to pick it up. By year 4 and 5, I became a partner with that gentleman. He's now passed on. He passed away a few years ago, which was just very, very heartbreaking. He was not only my mentor, but he was like a bigger brother. I have 2 older brothers. He was like my third. And at that time, 3 years ago, got really, that was the big tragedy, right? That was the one that I needed to make sure I got up from, and that's why the content started.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really powerful. Appreciate you sharing that.
For sure.
So during that, I guess during the period of transitioning from real estate agent to actually being a partner or a team leader, 2 very different skill sets. Did you find, was that easy to adapt to, or how did you go about building the skill set to be able to lead and inspire a team?
You know, for me, because I had 2 mentors and along the way some managers at the jobs that I worked at, it was quite easy for me. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, Matt, is because I really just emulated what I learned and I was just myself. Till this day I am. Like if you ask anybody who's been around me, they'll be like, yeah, Jas just comes with energy. He's going to be moving his hands around first thing in the morning, right till like you and I did a nightcap late at night, you know, from 9 to 10 o'clock. And I'll probably have one call after that nightcap. And I bring that same kind of energy. But when I had to go from salesperson to team lead, I knew I was just going to be myself. Nothing was going to change. And so the one thing that takes time though is the fact that you get a lot of questions, and you got to be okay with, Jas, do you have a minute? Jas, do you have a minute? It's kind of like the death of, do you have a minute? But once you get a grasp on time management and making sure that, for me anyways, I like to do the big things early in the morning, because then I can get to the smaller rocks. And if I happen to miss something later on in the day, I can, you know, as long as it wasn't one of the bigger rocks that I needed to get to.
Gotcha. So obviously to build up the level of success you've done with your team takes a a refinement of the sales process. So it's one thing to be a natural, it's another to teach. And so often those that do don't end up teaching. And, you know, a common saying is those that can't teach. So what are the first things, like as an active practitioner, you teach your team when someone's joining, especially if they don't have a lot of sales experience? Or are you automatically filtering out people that don't have sales experience?
Yeah, so we start off right now, like you have to have a minimum of 2 years. Not sales experience, but 2 years minimum of real estate sales experience. More because I want to make sure that they've been kind of slapped around in the business a little bit, for a lack of a better word. And what I mean by that is that when they come here, I want them to know that it's not like this everywhere else. And so we are looking minimum for two years of experience. And that just helps because I don't have to go through the process of writing a contract. I feel like they should know that what we do really well here, I think, you know, it speaks for itself with the results, is we build culture. It's a very fun place to work at. It's why the time that we went through right now with the pandemic was tough, because we weren't able to actually physically be with each other. But like Monday to Friday, there's tons of food here. We'll rip out maybe on a Thursday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, open up some beers and open up a bottle of vodka and have a lot of fun. We like to definitely enjoy what we do here. The second thing is we help have our salespeople focus on building relationships. And so really what I did well is what I teach is build out your relationships, build out time that you put in with your clients. It's not like social media and doing podcasts and content. That is the layer I want you to put on afterwards. The first and foremost, you need to focus on your warm marketing. Because see, what I've come to learn over 25 years is that if I stayed in touch with people since I was 12 years old, like the guys and gals that I was knocking on doors, I would be doing even double the amount that I did now. So I actually kicked myself because maybe at 15, I didn't start building out a list. I started around 19 to 20 when I was in car sales. So I have people who I sold cars to that they still invest in real estate with me as recent as 6 months ago. And the reason is because I always stayed in touch with them. I always gave them, led with education. There's a book here I have behind me, Matt, and this book here teaches people how to buy, sell, and invest. It's like real estate 101, okay? We don't sell it. We give it away for free. And most people in our business are like, what are you doing? You're teaching people, because there's a chapter in here on how to sell your own home. Matt, this is what we do, and this is exactly what we do to sell your home. Most people would be like, you're nuts. That's what you're supposed to get paid for. What we found is we give away all the value upfront, give away all the education through our content or a book, and 99.9% of people, they'll never do it on their own. Mm-hmm. And so why not be the trusted authority, right? And so we want to make sure that our agents, A, use a tool like that. We set them up with the tools. And then B, just stay in touch with your people. And so that's why we're looking for that 2 years minimum of experience as well, because we just find like some have some type of database. Because if you know 200 people, on average, everyone knows 200 people. When you know 200 people, your network is now 40,000 people. In the greater Toronto area, if you do 40 deals, you're making a very good living at 40, 50 deals. And there's 6.6 million people in the greater Toronto area. And if you're going to have a tough time connecting with 200, then maybe this is not the business for you.
Yeah, I love that. You made a lot of great points there. And so to maybe dissect a couple of them, I personally find company culture and trying to develop it a really fascinating aspect of building a successful business, and particularly building a successful, scalable business as well. And so I find oftentimes, especially with newer entrepreneurs or less experienced leaders, there's often this blurring of the lines between culture and perks. And it can be really easy to get caught up in the idea that perks are culture or culture is perks. And I think that that's really unfortunate. And so one thing I find really interesting is you talking a lot about relationship building and the keys behind that. And then you're actually acting in alignment with your core culture, or at least what I can identify as your core culture, because you're creating a book and literally giving away the book and information for free, which is very relationship oriented, right? So reciprocity, all that good stuff. And there's a great book by Ben Horowitz that's called What You Do Is Who You Are. And it's all about corporate culture. And that essence that a lot of us, especially when we start out as leaders, we start off with great intentions, but we come up with like this corporate core culture or whatever, and then you don't actually live by it. You don't abide by it. And so what it ends up being is just a marketing tool, just something to try and sell people on joining your team or working with your team, rather than being something that is literally part of the DNA or fabric of the company. And, you know, when you first begin building a company, you don't realize, but everyone is looking towards you and they're reading into every one of your subtle moves, whether you realize it or not. And that's where, if the culture doesn't really come from you as the entrepreneur, it eventually a dissonance will occur. And all of a sudden, because you're not acting in alignment, you'll find that your corporate culture really veers off into the woods. So I'd love to hear a little bit more on the idea of corporate culture and how exactly you approach it, you know, where you've drawn inspiration from, and any tools or tips you'd share with the audience.
Yeah, look, I think you're creating culture no matter what, if you know it or if you don't. It really is a question of, is it a positive culture? Is it one that's cultivating relationships? Are you trying to inspire, trying to motivate, or is it a negative culture that you don't even know that is being like that? That's what is actually what people are seeing and experiencing. So with us, what we did, myself and my partner, we love to have fun, just naturally. That's who we are. We like to, like, if you were here with us today, Matt, in the physical form, we would be doing things that are just, we're trying to have fun. Like, hey, Matt, what's your vice? Are you a water, coffee, tea, vodka, beer, whatever it is? Someone's going to go get that for you. That's just who we are, because we're very hospitable. And so for us, that's exactly how we set up our team culture. And so where we usually start is, if we're going to be hiring someone on, I ask them to come here for a week. Come here for 2 weeks. Don't join us. Do not join us yet. Do not even, like, we're not signing on the dotted line. This is not a training. You're not going to start training. I just want you to hang around. See if it's something that you're going to like, because we are kind of out there, you know, like, we do like to have a lot of fun. And for some people, that might not be what they want. Like, they want more of a, I want to be here at 9 a.m. and I want to be here till 5 p.m. where we'll be here at 8 a.m. and we'll be here till 11 p.m. Like, we go long hours. We don't expect anything from anybody. Very easygoing in terms of vacation time. Like, how much vacation do you want? Take as much as you want. What we found is, because we are a high producing team and a high producing office here, most people don't even take much time off, because they're just like, they don't want to be left. They don't want to be left behind, is what I started to find out over time. You mentioned perks. We don't really give a lot of perks. It's kind of just, you know, what we naturally do. We like to order a lot of food. We like to do a lot of events with our clients and with our team members. We like to, as I mentioned, we do a lot of social media stuff. But I check in with my team a lot. And so there's probably not a person who walks into my office or in my team that, like, I don't know what kind of night they had the night before. So I'm thinking of, like, Tyler. He's my air traffic controller, who's kind of like an inside salesperson, right? He'll walk in and I just kind of know in the first 5 minutes, the way that he said hi, the way that his shoulders were. I've known him for 5-6 years. I pay attention to this kind of stuff. I'm gonna know what kind of night he had. And if he had a rougher night at home because maybe he got into some type of disagreement with his partner, I'm going to just take it easy on him for the next half an hour, 2 hours. I'm going to let him get into the flow of things, because I know 90% of the days he comes in positive. Jas, what needs to be done today? And he's coming in with a lot of positivity. But that 10%, just like everyone else, we have bad days, and sometimes we bring it into the office. My director of sales and marketing, Laura Stewart, who also plays co-host with me on the podcast, I know if she's having a bad day, I gotta feed her. Like, that's her thing. Like, I know what, you know, like, I gotta get, what are we having today? Burger or pizza? Like, that's just who she's a foodie. And so I always kind of have an idea. I reverse engineer a lot, and I probably spend more time now, Matt, in the last 2 years focusing my energy on what the team is feeling than actual sales, right? That's my day-to-day. My day-to-day consists of probably 70% of how my team is feeling today. And I know some days we're going to produce at a 500% level. And some days it's going to be 65%. But I like to think my team's 65% is good. Like, we'll be fine. but at 500%, we're gonna take some names.
So it sounds like for the most part, it's been a very organic experience, how you've grown your culture.
Yeah, bang on, my man. Bang on. It's been very organic. Look, there's been people on my team. I have a saying around here: get on the bus, we'll find you a seat. Because we're moving, and I just want you to get on the bus, and sometimes you'll be in the front seat, and sometimes you'll be in the back seat. There is no difference between the front and the back, but I just don't know. You need to be okay with moving from the left to the right, because most of my guys, my videographer was never a videographer. In fact, he was an editor for MTV Portugal, fell on my lap. I hired him on, before the interview. My team says to me, they're like, Jas, let's make sure that we have 12 interviews, 67 applications or something. We have 12 interviews lined up in the next 3 days for you. Can you just make sure that you let him know at the end of the interview that you'll get back to him? I said, yeah, no problem. Talked to him for 15 minutes. Loved his energy, Matt. Just loved the way that he, what he was talking about, what he wanted to learn. And I was like, great, man. Do you have a camera? He's like, yeah. I'm like, can you start now? He's like, yeah, it's in my bag. And we got started right away. My team looks at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, there's a vibe. There's just some connection. I'm good. I don't care about, I know how many people lie on their resumes. So I don't really read a lot of resumes.
Mm-hmm.
No, have I, exaggerated on my resume when I was younger? Sure, right? And what are you're gonna ask them in an interview? What's what do you find the toughest thing about yourself? And the answer you usually get is, I work too hard. What are people gonna say in these interviews? So I'm going off of feel, right? And so, very, very organic, very, very organic. We grew here.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, the science or art of interviewing people is something I find particularly interesting as well. So I think a lot of companies do have a very formulaic process, which both bores the interviewer as well as the interviewee, and really doesn't get any results for anyone. One of my favorite little tactical tips when doing an interview is I'll actually go to a random question generator and ask 5 random questions at the start of the interview, because it both sets the pacing of it completely in a different direction than normal, as well as it really forces people to break out of pre-existing thought patterns. And so one of my personal favorite ones, that it's not quite random because I almost use it all the time, but what's the most expensive thing you've ever broken? And
interesting.
It's just a fascinating thought, because one, you have to take ownership of a mistake. And so it's very interesting to even hear how you tell the story of what you broke, right? Was it actually your fault, or do you end up blaming someone else by the end of the story? And there's just so much that you can extrapolate from that. But looping back to the culture,
I like that.
How do you clearly make it known to your employees? Do you have a manifesto? Is there a core word? Is it a slogan? How does everyone know how to live and breathe rec?
Look, I think the biggest thing that we talk about here, and there is a slogan, is, I don't know if you can see that, Matt, at the bottom, it says, yep, remove friction. And so what that means is that we are going to remove the friction and make it as easy as we possibly can on our clients. And they know that I'm going to try to remove friction in their lives to get so they can get out of their own way. In fact, that's the book that I'm writing right now that should be out, I'm hoping, by the end of the year. And so the title of that book is Removing Friction, How to Get Out of Your Own Way. Because I find, and I'm sure you can attest to it, Matt, is we generally ourselves are the ones that stop us from attaining big things.
Absolutely.
Or attaining anything, right? It's the 6 inches between the ears that stops us from doing things. Right. And so that's the saying around here. So even my director of sales, my director of real estate concierge services, all of them, they know you don't need to think about a $100 courier for the client if we need to go pick up their checks. If you heard, it's hilarious. My assistant, 19 years old, just turned 20 today, and you're saying to me, it's like, Jas, I feel so old. I'm like, you're 20 years old. You got so much life in you. But 2 weeks ago, he sent me a text. And he said to me, he's like, Jas, I was speaking to one of our clients, and all his job is to just actually do what's called a FinTrack. It's a FinTrack form. It's a couple of questions that the Canadian Real Estate Association needs filled out. He called the client, and in conversation, the client's like, oh my God, I know you sent me this email 48 hours, but someone passed away, and someone in their family passed away. And had a conversation with her. Luke, my assistant, texts me. He's like, Jas, this person's family member passed away. I'm just about to send them flowers. Are you okay with that? And I'm like, yes, Luke, yes, do what you need to do. He sent over $120 package, I believe, like flowers arrangement. And that made me feel good because he knew to do that. He's looking for these. He's looking for opportunities to make it easy for people, to help people. We get it all the time. I can't drop off these checks. We send couriers right across the country to make sure that it's as easy as it possibly is for our clients. With my team, they just know I'm going to try to reverse engineer. You need a month off, take a month off. Like Tyler's about to have a baby any minute now. And he's like, Jas, I'm about to take vacation. I'm like, dude, don't worry. Like he was asking about his vacation time. I'm like, we'll figure that out. Okay, just make sure your wife is good and make sure the baby's fine. Take as much as time as you need. I know you're going to want to get back as early as you possibly can, and I leave that up to you. You're not just someone who's starting with me. And so just having that type of culture, man, it makes everyone produce better, and that's what I want to build. I might be totally wrong. Somebody might be watching and listening to this and say, Jas, I'm telling you, man, don't build. Nobody's going to appreciate it. I hear that sometimes, right? Like nobody's going to appreciate all that you're doing, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this, and so if someone takes advantage of it, it's okay. Like I'm okay with that. People have taken advantage of me in the past. Like I'll be fine. For now, we're getting a lot of production and we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really powerful stuff, and really aligns with a lot of my personal thoughts as well. So I've got
it's why you and I connected, man. Like it's probably why we're connecting more and more. Like that first nightcap we did, that was the first time we ever spoke to each other than one DM setting up the time. You know what I mean? You were right. We run into we have a lot of the same mutual connections and friends, but it was the same. And first 10 seconds, we connected right away because I think we have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, 100% agree. I'm a big believer in trust but verify. So I've got a story that I've shared with my audience multiple times where literally used to live in a house with a bunch of dudes, right? And I would leave cash out on my dresser and it would drive my parents insane because they thought someone would take advantage and steal from me. And I just literally looked at it as I would pay to know that I couldn't trust someone in that house. And so for me, it is very powerful how you choose to interpret reality, because we all live in the same reality, but we all have very different experiences with that reality. So I'd love to explore the idea of removing friction a bit more, because as a service-oriented business, it makes a lot of sense. Now, one thing I'd be curious, in sales, and especially high-ticket sale items, it's not uncommon to have big egos amongst your high producers. So, what's your view on, let's say you've got that top all-star, but they don't play well with others. Is that someone that can survive and thrive in your culture? Or is the fact that they create friction within your culture a non-starter in regards to how you guys work as a team?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if you're the Michael Jordan on our team, if and I mean Michael Jordan from a skill level, not the way that he was. I actually agree with a lot of his characteristics. But if you're the star on our team, but you're an ass and you're just mean about it, you're not going to last here, because I know I can replace you with two really, really nice people, and I would rather just do that. Right. And so we've had situations in the past, not necessarily it was the top or if it was the top, but people that were just high producers on our team, but they didn't play nice in the sandbox. They just didn't play nice in the sandbox. Right. And so it doesn't only come from my sales, from my 33 realtors. That's something I look at a lot. But I also look at it from the admin staff and my media squad. In fact, that's what I hire based on. While the person's sitting with me, I'm making sure that Laura will be able to play nice with this new hiree, and the new hiree will also play nice with Laura. As I mentioned, Laura, who's been with me for 4, 5, 6 years now, I don't want her to be entitled either. I watch for that because she's been here for a while now. I don't want her to think that she gets the pass and she can treat this new hiree bad. You know what I mean? And so I'm watching for that as well. That's actually the most important thing to me here, because again, I need to make sure everyone's playing nice in the sandbox, because then I know we're just going to produce more. when it comes to our sales staff, yeah, I might take a little bit more from a higher producer, but not if you're mean. Like you don't need to come into the office and share everything and be nice and smiling all the time. That's not what I'm trying to say either. But if you're mean to somebody, you're putting someone down, you're getting a warning, and then the next time you're gone, because life's too short for that kind of stuff. Like I'll say that to one of my realtors, like, what are you doing here? Like, why be with us? Like, it's obviously not the right setting.
Really love exploring this entire theme. Before I kind of wrap up and pivot here, I'd love to just hear like practical tips for someone breaking into becoming a new realtor, especially if they don't have a lot of sales experience. You know, your tip about like answering the phone, I can't stress enough how critical that is at the start. If someone's willing to have a conversation with you, you have to be willing to have a conversation back. But what other things come to mind? You know, if you were starting fresh out as a realtor, you've got 1 year runway, it's either make or break here. What would you be doing?
First things first, I would get an assistant. And I know that to somebody who's listening right now, who's starting out, and this is experience, not only for me doing this for 15 years, but watching hundreds upon hundreds of realtors enter the business, okay? And just watch them in my office as well. I know you're sitting there thinking, there's no way I can afford an assistant. No, you can afford not to get an assistant. Figure it out, okay? And because here's what happens with new realtors and really just new salespeople in general in any industry. You wear too many hats and it's just too hard to do everything. And what happens is, it's too hard to do from a time perspective. B, you're probably not an expert at everything. You might think you are, like you're a good marketer or you're an expert at marketing and you're an expert at paperwork and all that kind of stuff, but you're probably not. And then 3, you have 2 jobs. Your jobs as a realtor is to meet people and help them buy, sell, and invest. That's it. Meet people, help them buy, sell, and invest. Everything else should be delegated. Everything else should be delegated. In fact, it's why I see most realtors, when they get into their first year, even their second year, Matt, it's why they don't make it, because they spend all their time printing out listing paperwork and CMAs, like comparative market analysis, or putting up their own for sale signs and putting up a lockbox. That time needs to be spent, that bandwidth, and I'm not talking about the internet bandwidth, I'm talking about the bandwidth in here, needs to be spent on meeting people. Because when you meet more people, they will introduce you. They will introduce you to more people, period. Your net worth is determined by your network. We all know that, but now you have to put it into action. And so the first tip I would say, get an assistant. You don't need to pay them $100,000 a year. You're paying them $35,000 to $40,000 a year, but they're giving you back minimum of 40 hours of your life every single week. And all that extra time is going to be spent on meeting more people and actually doing deals. You need to do the negotiations. That's what you need to do. I mean, I hear it all the time. Well, Jas, I like to have my listing paperwork done a certain way. Train them. Figure it out. And even if they do it at 80% of what you did, you now just freed up extra time. And then I want you to find 3 ways how you're going to get business. You need 3 funnels of getting business. One, and the one that is a no-brainer to me anyways, is your warm market, your database marketing, your relationship marketing, okay? That's your one. And then 2 other ways, practical ways. It might be door knocking, cold calling, open houses, social media, online marketing. I probably have like 53 ideas that I can run off. I don't care what you pick 2 others. And so you have 3. I actually have this phone on a Gorilla Pod. It has 3 legs. It's always a good reminder for me in how to have a strong foundation. And those are really the 2 main things. Everything else will take care of itself. But for me, the biggest one was delegation. Like, I haven't went on MLS for, 4 or 5 years myself. At least 4 or 5 years, I have not logged. I don't even have the authenticator, which gives me the code anymore, because someone else can print off all that paperwork. Someone else can bring that to me. I need to look through it from a negotiation perspective, not waste my time with printing things. I don't even have a laptop anywhere, Matt. I don't even own a laptop. I haven't touched a laptop in close to 3 years now. Why? Because I was wasting time on it. I wasn't really doing much. Like, I like to do this. I want to do this and be in. So once we finish this, Matt, I have a Zoom call with another client. I have 3 more lined up for the day, and then I'll be doing some outbound calls that I had to make. But that's where the business is. That's where the real money is, with you meeting with people, not behind a computer screen.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And this really applies even outside of just realtors, right? Even for real estate investors or really any professional. And the idea of hiring an admin at the start, especially if you're not successful or you don't have the proof of concept, is very intimidating. But the idea of outsourcing the lowest dollar value items on your to-do list is really important. I know a mentor of mine refers to a money sheet in a parking lot. And so the money sheet is shit that puts money in my bank account today or as soon as possible. And the parking lot's all the stuff that I probably should eventually do, but the wheels of the business won't fall off if I don't do it. And hiring an admin and having them tackle a lot of your parking lot items is absolutely crucial, and just really opening up your bandwidth in regards to tackling those most important tasks. And I find with a lot of salespeople, so for myself, I've got a team of wholesalers. Wholesaling is similar in certain ways to being a realtor as well. And one of their biggest struggles is time management and really just understanding what's actually important. And for us and our team, what we ended up having to do was just literally reverse engineer step by step how we make money. So the last step in the process is literally pick up check from lawyer, deposit into bank account. And we slowly worked our way back through all those steps. And we decided collectively as a team, it really is important to do the things closest to the money first, make sure that we're crossing those T's, dotting those I's, and then work our way down. Because when we're talking about, the different marketing channels you could tackle as a realtor or a wholesaler for that matter, social media sounds good and it's got shiny object syndrome, but you could literally spend 12 hours a day on social media and still not put any money in the bank. So finding that balance is absolutely crucial.
You can easily fall in the rabbit hole, right? Of somebody's watching this right now on YouTube, and then the next video pops up, and the next video pops up. Time chunk that, like do that at a certain time. Do that when you're in the bathroom. Do that when you're when you have some free time. You choose whenever that is for you, but definitely you can get caught up in the rabbit hole. And look, I mentioned that it's not going to cost you $100,000. You can go on Indeed.ca right now if you're listening and watching in Canada and anywhere else, Indeed.com, and just put up a posting, and you'll be shocked and amazed how much a response you'll get by just putting out something at $15 an hour, or even interns, and that you can't do on Indeed. But I start all my media squad as interns first, because I want to make sure their work is good, but not from their portfolio. I want to see what they can do within my system and my culture. But I start them as interns, then unpaid interns, then part-time, then full-time. And everyone's been through that same process. There's six of them now in total. And that's how they started. And that's how they all started. But after a few months, I kind of upgrade them because A, I know that they're having fun, and B, I know that their work is good. But from an assistant perspective, you can find so many assistants. It's not as expensive as you think it is. And here's a little hack as well that I do. When I bring an assistant on board, now when I bring any admin staff on board, I also let them know that I'm going to be I want to market to their database, their network. And if they get their license, they can make money. I can give them a referral fee when they're licensed, and they can essentially make what they're making in salary on the side for doing no work, just by me emailing and calling there on the side. What I'm paying them, I'm actually making back in how much real estate I'm selling. So that's been something that's worked really well for me in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I love that. We actually have a similar sort of sentiment amongst my team of wholesalers as well. So I've really tried to flip their thinking process on their head and just understand every single piece of real estate you see that we don't own, there's a problem there. So we need to get in contact with that owner and find out whether we can buy it. So, I've got a lot of young, aggressive dudes on my team, just the way it happened to shake out. And I was like, when you're at the bar, what I want you thinking of is not asking for someone's phone number, but asking for their landlord's phone number. That literally needs to be the level of thinking that we have here. And I love that you're really maximizing the existing network of any of your team members as well. That's absolutely critical. More attention's more attention. It's the reason why both of us do social media.
100%, right? And to me, is if I'm already emailing clients, I'm already inviting them to events, webinars, live events. It makes really no sense for my team not to invite their family and friends. And it could be a lucrative and even just an added on incentive, right? It might just pay for a vacation of theirs if one of their clients end up purchasing, or if they purchase themselves as well. And so, as I mentioned, that's something that I started about 4 or 5 years ago, and I've just seen it work really well.
So let's loop back. Originally, at the very start of this conversation, you talked about you became a realtor really to learn about real estate investing. So how did your real estate investing journey evolve? Did you do that in parallel, or did you end up kind of putting the desire for passive income on the back burner while you built up this active business and income?
Yeah, so it's exactly the way that I worked out, where I knew I needed to sell real estate, take that money and invest it into real estate. That was always my game plan. Whatever money I made, I'm not a big spender in terms of things. It's just not who I am. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Whoever has it, that's them, right? I wear kind of the same T-shirt every single day. I do shower and change my shirt. It's just a similar T-shirt that I wear. But I wanted to. The game plan from the get was I'm going to make money in real estate, selling real estate, taking those commissions and investing into real estate. And me being, I'm more of a lazy investor, right? I think everyone finds everyone should try to find what works well for them. And I like the Greater Toronto area. I'm born and raised here. You can say a street to me and I'll know it. You know, like if you say a street in London and Ontario, I have no idea if it's a good street or a bad street. So I stay in my lane. And the one easy strategy I found that works well for me personally is condos and pre-construction condos at that. Because my access to builders, because of the content that we do and the fact that we've been doing it so long, I get the pricing very, very early for myself and my clients. And there's the nice thing about a pre-construction condo that I don't have to get a mortgage for it right away. It allows me to buy time until the building gets built. And so with those two things, and I get to, my down payment is paid out over time. As I get paid in my fees and commissions over time, I can also start putting that in installments for my down payment. And so the strategy from the start was make money in real estate by selling real estate. And now I have the residual income from my team as well. And then, and take that and invest it into real estate.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah. I think a lot of people, when they originally get drawn to real estate investing, they're drawn to the idea of passive income. But most that really want to build a real portfolio, a scalable portfolio, find that they actually need to generate an active component, whether that's being a realtor, a mortgage agent, a wholesaler, a flipper, something along those lines that allows you to build that war chest so that then you can siphon off some of the funds into building up that passive portfolio.
So I totally agree, right? There's nothing wrong with wait. You just gotta wait. You gotta have some patience with real estate. That's what it is, right? I think there's what I find anyways, right? In business and in real estate. It's why the podcast that I do really covers entrepreneurship and real estate like you do as well, Matt. And I love those two topics because, again, there's so much crossover between the two, right? One, you need to take action. I don't care what you do, if in business or as a real estate investor. But the second thing is you need to have patience. You gotta just wait it out a little bit. And the real wealth is made over that long period of time in real estate, that long period of time in business. The more that you cultivate your staff and the relationships in your business, the more that you put in time from a tenant perspective and you take care of your property, you take care of your tenants, you're going to create that much more wealth over a long period of time. I find it just comes down to patience. That's all.
Yeah, patience is absolutely key, particularly for buy and hold investors. It really is that concept of time in the market, not trying to time the market.
So true.
So my audience is really big kind of number nerds. You know, they love to see numbers and stuff of that aspect. I don't think we're going to have enough time today to really dive deep into the condo investing perspective, but I'd love to explore that in a future video. But just overall, your strategy, do you mind sharing? You know, is this primarily a cash flow play? Is this an appreciation play? How does that factor?
So it's cash flow play from the perspective of that the rental income will cover my expenses. So they'll cover my mortgage payment with 20% down. They'll cover my mortgage payment, condo fees, property tax, and the $25 a month for insurance as well. But the cash flow I'm talking about is probably $100 a month, nothing to retire off right away. Okay, the play really is the principal pay down, as well as the passive appreciation. And so in the greater Toronto area, if we look at a sample size of the last 40 years, we see 6.9% year over year increase. I also know that we have 200,000 people coming to the greater Toronto area year after year for the next 10 years. So we're going to have 2 million people. But the biggest thing for me is, as an investor, is that I know we're kind of landlocked here, right? Like the south of the city, you can't build because of the lake. And then on the northern part, you got the Greenbelt legislation. There's applications right now as we speak to build on top of Yorkville Mall, like legit build right on top of it, right? So that obviously tells me basic supply and demand. We have a lot more demand than we do supply, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon, because it takes 10 years from when an application goes in to when a shovel goes into the ground. And so I always look at Manhattan and what happened there and what is happening there till this day. Too much demand, not enough supply. Values keep on increasing. Now, unlike the like Alberta or like even Vancouver, because of the foreign investment, because they're so close to Hong Kong, for example, we don't really manufacture anything here either, right? Like it's not like we're based on the oil industry. Our pricing is not based on that. It's very service based, and because of population growth, one thing we are lacking here from a world-class city perspective is transit. So if you can buy near transit or on a transit line, you're definitely going to see higher values and better from a rentability perspective. But I like also the class of the tenants that we get here. Most of my tenants and the thousands of applications I get to see every year from my clients, I mean, they're all making, in that $75,000, $85,000 range minimum, if not higher. And they're there for a longer period of time. I'm not turning over tenants, and as long as my building is built after November 15, 2018, I can increase the rents to whatever I like as well. And so you're going to see, with cash flow, passive appreciation, and principal pay down, you're going to be looking at anywhere 26, 27% year over year return. And for me, that's what I'm good with that. And I don't need the 18, 19% year over year passive appreciation that you see in some of the other provinces. I'm okay with the 6%, slow and steady for me. I'm 38 years old, and I'm creating my portfolio for the long term, passing it on to the kids if they're good and treat me well, they'll get it. If not, we'll see who it goes to. But it is very passive, because I'm picking up 500 square foot condos. Not much goes wrong with these things. And there's not much managing.
Yeah, well, I'd love to explore this business model in depth in a future video, but really appreciate you taking the time for this video in particular. If people want to follow along with you on your real estate investing journey, or you're building a realtor business journey, what's the best way to do so?
I appreciate that, Matt. It's jastakhar.ca, JASTAKHAR.ca. It's the easiest way. All my podcast episodes are there, my animations, my blog, the whole 9 yards. Everything is there, and there's a way to stay in touch with me through my monthly newsletter and updates on the upcoming book and all the content. And so it's jastakhar.ca. And thanks for asking, Matt. I appreciate that again.
Yeah, and just thanks again, Jas.
This has been the REC Experience Podcast with Jas Takhar, an REC Canada production.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching and listening. Please take a second right now to subscribe and follow us on whatever podcast platform you're watching or listening. It means the world to me. Thank you.